Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Creative Belief. This podcast is a curated collection of conversations with creatives who believe that creativity can change the world. My name's Alex. I get to be one of the co-hosts here, and I'm here with my buddy and business partner, Josh. Josh, what's up today, man?
Not a lot, man. Doing great today. Feeling good. Excited to have Brian on today and have a great conversation. So let's do this.
Yeah, it's a nice Indiana winter day. The sun is actually out. It feels like we are back amongst the living for the first time in a long time. So we're pumped to have our guest today, Brian Simpson, on the show with us. Brian is a marketing and creative pro who has spent the bulk of his career in the world of motorsports. Brian is currently running Stillhouse, a digital content creation studio and company here in the Indianapolis area, and serving clients across the country, who's really changing the game of motorsports creativity. Brian, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, guys. It's quite an intro.
We're super.
I'm proud of that. That was good.
Good, man. Yeah, we want to hype you up, dude. You guys are doing amazing work.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're big fans of your guys' work, and really appreciate you guys coming on, and you and Barry representing Stillhouse and talk a little bit about motorsport creativity and just creativity in general. We're excited to have you. But let's dig in, man. Let's hear a little bit from you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your backstory, maybe something that early on sparked creativity in your life, and what's led you to kind of where you're at.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this as, kind of looking at the questions you guys sent over, and I don't know that I ever realized that creativity was what I liked until later in my life. I think I look back and I realized there were things I was doing that kind of aligned with creativity, but I wasn't necessarily actively pursuing doing something creative. To kind of sum up, how I got to here. My dad raced cars growing up. That was where I got the bug. I begged and begged and begged and begged and begged for a go-kart. I wanted to drive. Dad never let it happen. They thought it was too dangerous, so I played football, which is the irony is I broke and dislocated everything possible, and a bunch of concussions and all that type of stuff. Same. So it probably would have been more safe to go-karting, but racing was something I always loved. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and moved to Indianapolis for high school, and just so happened to end up at a high school that had some guys that were actively participating in motorsports at that point in their life. So I went to high school with Ed Carpenter, another driver, Kyle Krisloff, who's his cousin at the time. He was racing in SCCA, and so it was kind of it reignited this passion for me that I'd always had. But didn't necessarily know that was where I'd end up. And so, I took photography classes in high school. I took design classes in high school. And, more than anything, it was, you have those creative electives you have to fulfill while you're there. So those accomplished that for me. And, I enjoyed them, but I definitely didn't see it as something I was going to continue to do, beyond the class itself. So got to college, ended up started working in a restaurant, and a poor college kid needed beer money and things like that. So started washing dishes, and then ended up behind the line there cooking, and that kind of ignited a passion for cooking for me. Which
That's awesome.
At the time I didn't think that was something creative. I was just like, I like doing this. It's gonna be pretty good at it. So did it all through college. Got out of college. Thought that was what I wanted to do. Went to culinary school, didn't really think, I would do anything beyond cooking. Got an opportunity to go work for a catering company that was going to be working in motorsports that coming season. The team that they had been hired for in sports cars folded about a month before the season started. So my contract got terminated. I never even started it. I never even got a day. And so that sucked. But I thought that was going to be an opportunity to do something I liked in something I liked, right?
Yeah.
So went from that to I installed commercial and industrial security and alarm systems, which was awful. It is not creative. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
It's a really messy, boring, awful job, pulling wires through buildings and hanging stuff on walls, and did that for a while. And then coincidentally, a friend of mine who I knew through high school and college, reached out to me and said, "Hey, there's this internship opportunity at the Speedway, in the new media department," which is, I mean, it was new media then. Now we just call it digital or social or whatever. And, so my skill set from college aligned with what they were trying to do. So took that job, and just, immediately kind of fell in love with the opportunity to kind of create around motorsports. Now I wasn't, creating video. I wasn't creating photo as much. I was really just kind of handling the websites, and I would help write content here and there, and things like that. But as time went on, I kind of inherited more responsibilities and ended up taking over the social media accounts, and then ended up, the guy who had run the photography department for 50 some odd years retired. And so all of a sudden that became my responsibility. And that's where I think I really kind of fell in love with, again, I would say, with the creative element, is just, working with these 20 guys that are, covering the Indy 500 and all the IndyCar series races, and seeing the stuff that they're doing. And it was starting to scratch an itch I didn't necessarily realize I had. And like I said, as time went on, more and more responsibility kind of came my way. Ended up being in charge of the video platforms for IndyCar and Speedway and so on. And so, we went down a bunch of different paths and did a lot of really fun, creative projects while I was there for about 8 years. And then at the end of 17, Joseph Newgarden called me and asked me if I wanted to come work for him. It was kind of a funny conversation. I thought he was just calling me to ask for help for something, because part of my job when I was at IndyCar is I was kind of a resource for the drivers when they needed things. And a lot of guys called me a lot with different things. And so I thought he was just calling to ask for some help with something. And so he explained he wanted to hire this position. And so I wrote him a job description and sent it back to him. And he called me back the next day and he was like, "Hey, I'm not great at this, but like, I want you to do the job." And I was like, "Okay, well, first we need to revise the job description, because I did not know that's what you wanted me to do." So
I would not do all those things.
I was like, there are things in here that are not in my wheelhouse that I thought you wanted. So
that's awesome.
We ended up working together for 6 years. We started Dream Digital, which was the first iteration of Stillhouse. We started that in 2018. And that really stemmed just from, I was having a great time doing what we were doing with Joseph, but I was getting a lot of phone calls from drivers and teams asking for help with various things. And just kind of said to him, like, "Hey, I'm happy with the way things are, but I think there might be an opportunity here for us to build a business if you're interested." And we decided to take a swing at it, and it took off really quickly. And at the end of 23, Joseph wanted to reprioritize some things in his life and simplify some things. As a new dad, had a bunch of stuff going on. So he and I went our separate ways with Dream, and I rebranded it to Stillhouse, which is what it is today. And, we've expanded now beyond IndyCar. We're in IMSA. We've done some stuff in NASCAR, some stuff in NHRA, all kinds of different things. So I get to go see a lot of very different forms of motorsport. We did some stuff with some motorcycle racing last year, which was really cool.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, it's been a weird, winding journey. Didn't necessarily think this is what I would end up doing. I thought, when I was working at IndyCar corporate, that I'd probably work at IndyCar corporate till I retired, and that would be what it was, or maybe in some circumstance I'd end up at a different sport or something like that. I did have some opportunities to go to the NFL and things like that, but I did not see running a creative agency in motorsports in my future when I got out of school, for sure.
Yeah, man, that's incredible. And I think given that whole journey, all the like ins and outs, there's so much to, I think, unpack in your story and all the different spaces that you've been creating in. Talk a little bit about, like, you came into IndyCar, like you said, it was called New Media. You came into that world when they were really trying to adopt this like new technology, really reach a fan base. As like a lifelong IndyCar fan, I have kind of followed that journey. So talk about the like creative challenge of stepping into something that was really new to them. And was there like, were you given the keys and said, hey, like just go create? Or was it like, we don't really know what this world is, and so we just kind of want to tiptoe into it? Like talk about that experience.
I was very lucky in that I had great bosses when I arrived at IndyCar and IMS. I had in particular, my boss, he's still a mentor today, Daniel Incandela. He was he had come there from the art museum here in Indianapolis, big time creative guy. And he really just said, listen, like, we don't really know where the boundaries are with this. Go for it, push. My only requirement is whatever you do, we have to be able to measure it, because if we can't measure it, we don't know if it's working. So, he let me have pretty much free reign. And so, back then, streaming, things like that, all that was new. And, I got to give IndyCar credit. They were already kind of on the forefront of that when I got there. They were streaming practice sessions and, trying to create these robust online experiences for fans to consume the product that didn't have access to a TV, or their country didn't have a TV package, or whatever it may be. So we really leaned pretty heavily into, live content, live video, live updates. The Twitter feed back then was, we would give full field updates frequently, pit stop updates, all things like that. So the frequency with which we were putting out content for people to consume was pretty high. And what got really cool was over time, the tool set that we had to create that experience got better and better and better. Right. So, and the other side of that is we did start to define the boundaries, and, as we got new TV contracts, what we could do got a little bit smaller just because they had the rights to it. And, I got to give NBC credit. When I was there, they were very cool with allowing us to do things that maybe weren't necessarily within the boundaries of the agreement. I don't know that we were allowed to stream practice. I don't know that we were allowed to stream qualifying, but the agreement we always had was, if they're not going to have it on TV, Peacock wasn't a thing back then. If they're not going to have it on TV, we can stream it. But the only caveat is we really have to promote the broadcast, which, obviously it's to our benefit to do that anyway. So
absolutely.
We tried everything under the sun, and not all of it worked. We did a lot of different live content series. We did web video series. We did, fan hosted things, fan Q&As. We used to do Facebook Lives with every pole winner, race winner after every session. We were literally hammering everything that you could to try to, make an impact for the league and the series. And like I said, not all of it worked for sure, but I think during that window, there was a massive exponential gain for the series and social media following and web engagement and things like that, because we were definitely in this kind of envious position that we didn't have all the boundaries yet, so we could swing at things and see what happened.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I love the comment about like, you can do whatever you want, but you have to be able to measure it. I think as creatives, especially in sometimes more like traditional corporate settings, there's time for us to just create and let it be creation for creation's sake, right? Like it's just expression, we get it out there. But we also have to think about those sandboxes that we play in, and how does what we're creating drive the bottom line of the organization, the thing that we're a part of, right? We are not creating just for ourselves all the time. There's space to do that. But I think as creatives, we often struggle. Like I've seen a lot of creatives butt heads over that space of like, well, why do I have to be able to measure it? I just want people to feel something. And like, that's awesome. I'm all about that too. But at the end of the day, our creativity is often supporting something much greater, a greater mission, a greater organization than ourselves. And so we have to be able to kind of conform our creativity in some ways to that mission and that organization. And to me, that's like the real art in creativity, is how can I take the skills that I have and how can I conform them? How can I use them in this space that may not be a traditional creative field to make a bigger impact beyond myself? And so I love that you guys were kind of given that challenge. And I'm sure that was frustrating some days. There were days I was like, man, we just want to do this killer thing, try this crazy thing. But when there wasn't a measurable metric, you had to kind of step back and say, all right, we gotta figure out how we measure this.
Yeah, and we also tried, I think a meeting we put together later in my career there that helped us kind of hone in on this was, we were everybody I considered a content creator, right? So everybody on our team had ideas for content, whether it was written, video, whatever it might be, everybody had ideas. And the problem we had was we had these brand pillars, right? So at the time it was, we were the world's fastest racing. We were or our drivers were athletes, and then, advancing technology. And then we kind of just had this lifestyle bucket.
Yeah.
So we would do a meeting once a week where everybody was supposed to bring in 5 ideas. We'd have everybody write them down on a Post-it note and go up on the board and put them under which brand pillar they aligned with. First time we did this meeting, we had, I think it was 40 ideas. 38 of them were in the lifestyle bucket. And that indicated we had a bit of a challenge we needed to get corrected. Because, ultimately there's nothing wrong with the lifestyle content and there's a place for it. But if it's not reinforcing what we are as IndyCar or what our drivers are as athletes or, things like that, we're doing ourselves a disservice. So we kind of had to realign that a little bit where, okay, maybe 15% of the content we're going to create is going to be in this lifestyle bucket, but the other stuff really needs to reinforce what we're trying to tell people we are. And that's when I think you look at big brands like, the Nikes and Adidas and the NASCARs and the NFLs, and they're very clear as to what they are and who they are. And the content that they create in 99% of the time supports what they are and who they are in some way. Now, they still take that lifestyle stuff. They still do weird things. They still have fun. They still do things that don't necessarily have a direct connection to the sport other than maybe the athlete participating in it, but they're very honed in on making sure that the story they're telling is reinforcing who they are as a business or a brand or sport.
Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely. I think sometimes I know, like, I've had clients or whatever I work with, and they're like, you have those that are like, I just want you to make something cool. Like, it looks cool. And I think as a person that values kind of that storytelling aspect or that way to actually identify or give your brand an identity, it becomes a struggle because that client or that company, that organization that you're working for is really what's unique. And I think that, like, you can create the coolest logo or you can create the coolest content, but if it's not really bringing like value to what you're doing or to your organization, like, it's just going to fade away, and I think it's important for us to think, what are emotional connections that we can make within our the things that we're making, but also how does it tie back, because that's almost even more important, and that really, I think, starts to bring out a lot more emotion, a lot more opportunities to tell stories, a lot more ways to really be just creative, honestly, because I think sometimes it's harder to do that. And we really have to dig down deep to do that sometimes, which can be a challenge. But with that in mind, I love what you were saying and talking about, like, your mentor and stuff and how he's still kind of a part of your life. And I was wondering if there was, like, maybe not even necessarily from him, but just some creative advice that you've received that's kind of stuck with you for a while. And even if that's something that you share now, or if there's creative advice that you would give to people, even in the position you're in with running Stillhouse, or just something you've learned that you hold on to.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel, I don't know that he necessarily said this specifically, but it was more kind of the way he, behaved and embraced it. But, I try to impart on all of our team and on myself that, you can make mistakes. Like, it's like, not everything's going to be a home run. And, that's part of creating. You may take a swing at something, whether it's shooting somewhere on track or trying to create a video or trying to do a certain type of edit, and it just doesn't work. It's okay. Like, I mean, that's how you're trying. And, there are plenty of times where, Barry or someone else on our team has come back from a session and been like, man, I missed that. I didn't get it done. And I'm not the type that's like, well, weekend's over. That's, you screwed it up. Like, it's like, listen, like, there's so many opportunities for us to, take what we learned there and do a better job, and or try it again and knock it out of the park. So Risk taking is a big part of what I think creates success for creatives, and not being afraid to take a swing at something. And if you miss, just swing again. It's, that's part of it. It's a grind. And, the reality of the situation is if you do the same thing over and over that, works, you're probably not going to be in business too long. So, you got to start to try to do some stuff that's maybe outside the box or just a different way of thinking. And, like I said, not all of it works, but, usually you'll find something that you're like, hey, all right, that was good. Let's do more
awesome.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we all have that like folder of like ideas we've tried that didn't work, that I sometimes go back and I'm like, okay, I need to remind myself that thing didn't work, but that's okay because we kept going. Like we kept going after the next idea. And so that bad idea or just the idea that was a great idea, but execution didn't come together the way we thought, led to something really incredible for us in the long run. And I think that's a killer mantra to live by as a creative.
Yeah. And I think, even as a leader in the creative space too, like to give permission to those that you lead, that, like make mistakes, that, because I've been in positions where it's felt there's just been so much pressure, and that mistakes, you're not allowed to have many, if any, and as a creative person, I think it really just starts to like weigh on you. And I feel like for me, it would just block so much of kind of that flow, or just all of that just felt very, just made it difficult to create in those spaces. And I think being allowed, because I've always been told, like fail forward and like, like learn from your mistakes and stuff. But then you get into certain, whether organizations or work with certain clients, and you find out that maybe that was just like a mantra that you were told, and like, they're paying the bills. So it's like fall in line and give me what I want. And, you're starting to hear some different things. And so I think as a leader in that space, and when you're leading an organization and you allow your creatives and the people that you're leading to fail, like it's just creating way more opportunity for them to also just create some really cool stuff. Like you learn so much from your mistakes, and, like even you guys, like I could see the pressure of like, like a car's coming by at a certain time, or, you have so much time with a driver. So, you got to make it, work. And, but, even one thing Barry shared was like, I can't always direct the sun. So it's like at certain times, like I can only do so much. And it's like, that's so true. Like there's also so many other aspects and so many other things that go into at times that are at play in what we do. So
we always joke that pace laps look beautiful, and then as soon as the green flag drops, the clouds come out. So St. Pete in particular is notorious for that, where you've got this beautiful Florida sun and you've got it exposed perfectly, and then green flag comes and they're roaring at you at 175 miles an hour, and cloud cover drops over, and all of a sudden you're underexposed, and it's you're like, what trying to adjust the camera.
Gosh, man.
That's life.
Yeah. I have done a very little bit in the world of motorsport in terms of film and video. And like, I used to think weddings were stressful, and I think weddings are still stressful as a photographer and a filmmaker, like capturing that moment. But like the minuscule amount of time you have in the world of motorsport when cars are coming at you, or you're with a driver and they've got to get in for a session, and you're like, I got 30 seconds to ask you. And if you're not set up, like that pressure is wild. And I love your guys, like just that team mentality as well that you talked about. Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Sorry, you dropped out briefly there, but
that's it. It's been doing that on my end.
What were you saying? Team mentality.
I was just gonna say, I can cut us in there. I love that team mentality that you guys have of like, let's carry each other through that. Let's look at the things that didn't work well, and then let's say, hey, what's a different way for us to approach that? I think as creatives, we sometimes get isolated and we get into our own creativity without other people to like give us feedback, give us thoughts. And even as solopreneurs, right? Like running small companies, small teams, or doing your own thing creatively, it's really valuable to have other people that you can send your work to, send your stuff to, and say, hey, what do you think? Like, does this suck? Am I not crushing it today? And get feedback from people. I think that's such a critical part of the creative process. And it sounds like you guys really embody that well, kind of in the moment, in that live setting.
Yeah, we try to. I mean, we're all sat together every weekend, right? So it's tight, close quarters, and it's smelly and hot and not very pleasant. But we're all kind of looking at each other's stuff, and definitely everybody feels comfortable, turn to the person next to them and say, is this dumb, or is this cool, or what did I miss here? Does this look bad? I mean, Barry's so good with understanding what colors should look like and things like that. Like, he is always my kind of crucible for my video footage. Like, does this guy look gray? Does this guy look blue? Like, why is the skin tone right? Things like that. And he's, I have no problem turning to him and saying, like, I don't know if this is right. Like, and he's, an open book and saying, like, well, man, that's a little orange, like, or something like that. But, we're a good group. I think the main thing with our group that I've always tried to preach is, like, this is fun, right? Like, what we get to do is fun, and it shouldn't not be fun. And it is a job, and there are challenges and stress and things associated with it, and deadlines, and occasionally difficult clients or unrealistic expectations and things like that. And my job as the leader is to try to make sure that those guys are insulated from that, and that I remove any roadblocks and things like that. But more importantly is, like, we just try to laugh a lot and joke and, move on, and not dwell on missed opportunities or screw ups or things like that, because, all it is time wasted. And, it doesn't help you get better to just sit there and dwell on it. So we look at it and say, okay, yeah, we missed on that. Cool. Next session's in 45 minutes. And we move on. So,
No, I was just gonna say, that's great. Like, I think one of the underlying themes it seems like we've been having with a lot of our guests is just relational trust, and how much that helps you blossom as creatives and as a team, and that feedback that you can receive from trusted people that that are gonna give you good wisdom and things to really work on. Another thing I wanted to hit on too that you said was the fun aspect, because I think that's important. Like, I've been a part of different places where it's like, it's not fun, and I'm like, is this what being a designer is like? Like I enjoy kind of what I'm doing to an extent, but it's just not fun. But, like, do I have to sell my soul to kind of do the job that I like doing? And I, as you experience different opportunities, you realize, like, no, I think I can have both. Like, I think I can be creative and do the job that I love doing and have fun doing it. 'Cause that's how it started for me. Like, when I was young and getting into just creativity, I was like, it was fun. Like, it was a fun thing. And that's what really drew me into, like, drawing and doing different creative things. And then somewhere along the way, you turn to an adult and you're like, oh man, none of this is fun anymore. Like,
there's this like weird pressure that like all of a sudden becomes a reality. And I think sometimes as creatives, we look back and I'm like, where did that pressure come from? Like, who said that there was so much pressure in what we're creating? And I think it's that like realignment of perspective. Josh, what you were getting at is that, like, this should be fun. We are creating things that make people's lives more enjoyable, make people's lives better, right? Like, where like this pressure just feels like this external thing that we've kind of made up, I think, sometimes as creatives. And maybe sometimes like we've made our work a little too serious, a little too like life and death feeling. And like the reality is we're telling incredible stories that are bringing like joy and entertainment to people. And if we're not having fun, then I think it can become evident in our creative pursuits that comes through the story that we're telling, right? It becomes really rigid and really like, this just feels kind of gross and like corporate and not like life-giving and fun anymore. So Brian, take us to the the world of creativity in motorsport, right? You've been in that space. You've been someone, I would say, who's really kind of helped redefine what a lot is happening in the world of creativity, especially in the world of IndyCar. Where do you see the world of creativity in motorsports going in the next few years? What do you think is on the horizon?
It's interesting because, I would say there was an era where there were a few people that were kind of, and when I say people, I mean teams or drivers or whatever it may be, that were kind of, by far and away leading the pack in terms of creating content or, what their brands look like and social media and things like that. And that gap from the top to the bottom has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And now really everybody is seeing the value in it. And so what I think is, it's great, first of all, that drivers and teams are seeing value in it, investing in it, and hiring people like myself or other agencies that are in the paddock or people like you guys. It's, that's excellent because it is important. It delivers value to sponsors, it delivers value to the networks, it delivers value to the series. Like, it grows the sport. The downside to it, or not the downside, but the kind of other side of that coin is, now that everybody's doing it, how do you break through the noise and create something that's different than everybody else? And so, that's the challenge that I always try to ask myself each year, regardless of whether or not all those other people were doing it, was what are we going to do this year that was different than last year and is better and is going to get eyeballs or get attention or, maybe it won't work, but it might get some people to go like, oh, and pay attention to other stuff we're going to do. But, and that's kind of like, I look back at Bus Bros and like, that's what that was. Like, we didn't know what that was going to be. Like, Joseph said, hey, Scott got a bus. We should do like a web series during the year. And I was just like, well, okay. Like, what do you mean web series? Like,
right.
And he's like, I don't know, just something fun. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to throw some stuff at the wall here on the first episode and see what sticks, and whatever sticks becomes the show. And so that first episode, like, we titled it, We Literally Don't Know What We're Doing, because we literally didn't know what we were doing. Like, we made up, there's so much that didn't even make it into that episode. Like, we shot so many different things that some of it, like, halfway through, I was just like, this is crap, cut. We're not going to do it. Like, move on to the next thing. Like, we were just trying so much different stuff just to try to create something that was different. And that thing took off. Like, I mean, it exploded. And I mean, I wouldn't say it was viral in terms of the YouTube world, but it was viral in terms of the motorsports world. And I realized that when we got to Daytona the next year and we're standing on the grid and there's kids screaming Bus Bros at the Rolex 24, like, we're outside the IndyCar paddock. And I was just like, well, dang, like, we've created
awesome.
And that was our joke, was like, we created a movement, right? It wasn't just a YouTube show, it was a movement. But, I think things like that and thinking like that are what has to be next for motorsports is teams now. I think everybody in the paddock is doing the short form TikTok style, challenges and things like that. And like, there's nothing wrong with them. They have their place, they work, they grow your following. It's excellent. But again, if everybody's doing them at some point, how do you become, what's the differentiator? Are you going to do those same things, but that much better than everyone else? Or are you going to find something that's entirely different, that's yours and you own it? And that's what grows for you. So, I think motorsports in general has kind of been slowly on the back end of adopting all this stuff. So they've now caught up really quickly. And I think, COVID and F1 and things like that all kind of helped ignite that conversation and get people to understand the value in it and spend more time with it. But, moving forward, I think it's just going to be really challenging because right now everybody's kind of drafting off each other and trying to do the same stuff. And it's how do you create something that's uniquely yours, but also successful?
Yeah, that's good. And I'm sure too, in your space specifically, that becomes even more challenging because you're now not just serving like the series with Stillhouse, you're serving a variety of different clients who are part of the same series. And so how do you help each of them do that own unique thing and not be all doing the same thing over and over? I feel like that's always the challenge in agency world when you work with clients in the same space. It's like, how do we help you each tell a unique story and use the techniques that are working, but also push the envelope and do things that are different, specific to each client. So you're not just like the agency that rinses and repeats and everyone's like, all right, we're going to go find someone else who's a little more creative than what you guys can offer us.
Yeah, I think that what helps us in that space is, we are lucky in that we get to work with, in the driver's side in particular, everybody that we work with has a very strong personality that is very different from everyone else's. So,
Yeah.
Scott McLaughlin is nothing like Alexander Rossi. They're both two of my favorite people in the world to work with. But they're couldn't be further apart in terms of personality. And so that helps a lot, right? It makes it easier for me to, I understand them both well enough to know how to create content that is, uniquely in their voice,
Yeah.
and specific to them, without it looking like anything else anyone else does. So,
Yep.
and I think that speaks to knowing your clients, right? So
Yeah.
I think what happens a lot of the times too is agencies get into this growth phase where they're trying to pull in is just, I want all the work, bring it all in, let's get all of it, and we'll figure it out on the back end. And you end up, going down this you become a one-trick pony because you're oversaturated with the amount of work and your bandwidth is only so much. So you're kind of just cut and printing everything that you've got. And so,
Yep.
I've been selective in how we've grown. I've been selective in who we work with. And, thankfully, most of the clients we work with, I would consider really good friends of mine. So I know them really well, and it makes it a little bit easier for us to kind of create stuff that's, very Scotty Mac versus dry and witty Alexander Rossi.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's such a good point too, that importance of knowing your clients, having those intimate relationships. It goes back to that whole relationship and creativity have to exist together, right? For creativity to work well and to tell incredible stories, you got to know who you're telling the story about and who you're telling the story to. And I love that. I think that's something as creatives, we all need to be reminded of, is the importance of relationships. Cause sometimes we try to burn bridges and say that we're the best and we know what we're doing and we're the pro. And sometimes our clients have killer ideas. Let's stop hating on our clients because they really bring so much to the table. And without them, we don't have the work. And so it's gotta be this two-way street and two-way relationship. I love that that's what you guys are doing. Brian, dude, what's on the horizon for you? You guys getting ready to kick off another season of IndyCar. What's on the horizon for you, the team at Stillhouse, both personally, professionally?
Yeah. I mean, we've got a lot of the same in terms of, clients and people we're working with. And I actually have a call right after this with a new potential client that I'm really, really excited about. Someone I wanted to work with pretty much my entire career. So, there's some new things in the motorsport world that are developing for us. I want to see us grow into some other spaces. And we are. I mean, Barry's doing some work for some car clubs down in Miami, across the year that, has been a kind of a new, it's still technically motorsports, I guess, but it's a different space for us to be working in. And, I want to see us try to expand into some other things. I mean, we get plenty of corporate work, which while it's incredibly financially awesome, it is not my favorite form of work. So we do those in the off season to, keep the heat on, but, it's not, my high on my list of things I want to grow, but, I love golf. Probably toe on my hat. It's my favorite sport in the world outside of motorsports. And that's something that's a goal of mine is, I'd love to see us find some opportunities to get into that space, whether it be through, working our way up from the Corn Ferry Tour, just like the pros do, or, maybe working with Liv. They're going to be here in Westfield, Indiana, about 4 miles down the road from my house here later this summer. And, they're partners with Fox. So is IndyCar. So, I'm hoping that, we'll get to try to do some new and exciting things. I mean, I think, I'd never complain about motorsports. I love motorsports. It's given me everything that I have and, some great friendships and things like that. But, it's fun to get to do something a little bit different every now and again. And the motorcycle stuff last year was a perfect example of that. Not a world I thought we'd be in. Had a lot of fun getting to do it. It was very different. The tracks we went to, I didn't know existed prior to going to them. So, it was fun. And so, I look across for Stillhouse and our future. And I think, obviously growth is a big goal of that, but I more than anything is I want us all to feel, engaged and challenged and excited to go to work every day. And, I think to keep that kind of excitement level up, you gotta find new stuff to do every now and again, because otherwise it does get a little stale doing the same damn thing over and over.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
And there's also that balance too of like, what's too much for, our team. But at the same time, those exciting opportunities to step into as well. That's, as a leader, as somebody who runs the place, like those are some of the, tough challenges and decisions you have to make, but it's exciting, man. This has been great. I've loved having this conversation, and as a Notre Dame fan, I appreciate that there's no Buckeye stuff around.
I didn't know you were a Notre Dame fan. I would have put on a sweatshirt or something. This is my basement bar, and it's pretty agnostic in terms of college teams down here. It's mostly just golf and motorsports stuff. So
I respect it. I also like golf and motorsports. So
there we go.
An incredible combination. Well, Brian, dude, thanks for joining us. This has been awesome. Really tons of wisdom that you've shared. I really appreciate you sharing that and just chatting with us about creativity, the world of motorsport. And man, we can't wait to see you at the track this season. Get to hang out and connect and see all the incredible things you and the team at Stillhouse are up to.
That sounds awesome, man. Thank you guys for having me on here and having Barry on. Barry's a gem of a human being who doesn't get enough of a spotlight that he deserves. He'd never take it because he hates it, but he is an incredible person and otherworldly talented photographer. So I was really happy. He was actually funny. He texted me. He was like, "Hey, I'm doing a podcast. Is that all right?" I was like, "Barry, you can do whatever you want. I don't care." Like, and I was like, but wait a minute, like, who's the podcast? And then he told me, and I was like, "Well, I'm doing the same one next Friday." And he was like, "Oh, no way!" I was like, "Yeah." So
also, we totally forgot, but he said that we were supposed to call you Brian Sullivan.
Yeah, he wanted me to introduce you as that.
Yeah. So, did he tell you the backstory on
Sorry, Barry. No, he just said.
He just said introduce him as that, and I totally forgot until Josh said.
So there, a handful of years ago, his first year, Barry was working for us. We month of May. The star photographers all over the place getting photos of people, drivers talking to people, and there's this photo that was on the front page of the Indy Stars website of Rossi talking to me, and it said Alexander Rossi chatting with Brian Sullivan, and they just that became a thing. So I've been known as Brian Sullivan or That's Sullivan awesome. By those guys for quite some time.
So if we see you at the track, we should just shout out Sullivan.
Yeah,
that can be like
perfect.
The greeting.
Yeah, it was actually like I didn't mind that I didn't get my name right because I'm also not a big spotlight guy. I don't really talk about myself very often. So I was like, nah, it's cool. They got it wrong. Nobody needs to know who I am.
Yeah, it's better. It's better that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. What a story. Well, Brian, dude, thanks so much. This has been awesome. And thank you to everyone who listened today. Thanks for watching, subscribing, do all that. Subscribe to the show, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, subscribe and follow on YouTube. And you can follow along what we're doing at Creator Studio, our brand design studio on Instagram. That's at Creator Studio, at CRTR Studio. And we'll link to Stillhouse, to Brian, Barry, all their stuff in the show notes. So you can follow along what they're doing and the incredible stuff that they're creating in the world of motorsport and hopefully soon beyond. Brian, thanks so much, man.
Thanks, guys.